Hey guys, AlphaSex here, welcoming you back to Dubster Dive, the series where we take a look at something's English dub and let you know if it's actually worth it. And this time we're looking at something I've been hyped for a while. Gunbuster, the 1980s classic that for some reason took nearly 40 years to receive an English dub. And I'm just curious as to why did it take so long? Then again, Saint Seiya wasn't much better. Took that over 30 years to get a completed dub, and even then, we didn't get the Hades arc. Still waiting on that. But yeah, that aside, Gunbuster's English dub recently released, and I figured we'd take a look at it and see if it's any good. Was it worth the wait? Let's find out together. So, for those who aren't aware, Gunbuster was an OVA series that began in 1988 and wrapping up in 1989 with 6 OVAs, as I like to call them, created by Studio Gainax, people behind Gurren Lagann and Evangelion, with the director and creator of this series being Hideaki Anno. Yeah, now you all know why I wanted to cover this. Evangelion being one of my favorite anime, period, I had to take a look at its predecessor, as it were. And after watching it, you could definitely see that it was the progenitor for Eva, more or less. Some stuff from it was taken for Eva. That doesn't make it an exact copy, just similarities that you could spot. So, yeah. Anyway, Gunbuster's licensing, on the other hand, outside of Japan, seems to be all over the place. The first one I could find was from Bandai when they were publishing anime in the US, with a sub-only release that came with Japanese commentaries, art books, and all this other stuff. That was rendered out of print when Bandai shut down back in 2012. Not the company, just the US anime publishing branch. But yeah. Then years later, we would get news that the film adaptation of Gunbuster, which is just a recap film, yeah, it's all 6 OVAs condensed down into a shorter film, that would be handed over to Sentai Filmworks last year. They would put out the sub-only release for it. While Discotek would announce that they've got the rights to the OVA series and give it a long-awaited English dub. And a really cool Blu-ray release. Now, the thing that sucks here is we could have had 2 different English dubs. Imagine if Sentai did dub the pseudo-recap film. Wouldn't that be cool? We could have compared and contrast which dub we prefer. Though, to be honest, from everything I've looked up, the film is literally worthless, so no one feel bad about missing it. It seems to just be a condensed version of the OVAs, like I said. The OVAs are definitely superior with more content. Still, though, would have been interesting to have a dub versus dub debate. Anyway, Discotek would announce the dub was supposed to be out at the end of 2022, but it was delayed until May of this year, 2023. I still can't find a reason why? I don't know, maybe scheduling or something. So what is Gunbuster about? Well, I'm going to talk about all the characters when we get there, but I'll just sum it up quickly. It's the future. And the Earth is being under constant threat of outer space alien bugs. Yeah, an alien invading force. Oh, no, wouldn't recycle that. But we have our protagonist, Noriko, as she wants to become a mecha pilot in order to chase after her father. See, her father, or her father's position, I guess, wants pseudo-revenge for him. Because her father was an admiral in the fleet that was taking on the aliens in outer space and died in a mission against them. So Noriko is determined to prove herself worthy of piloting a mech and going out there and kicking some alien ass. And yeah, there's other characters too. Like I said, when we get to the Dubster Dive section where we go over each one of them, I'll go over them in greater detail. Overall, though, things do get more complicated than that, because it is an Anno anime after all, so you all know what to expect. There's things such as time dilation, I'll explain what that is as well in a little bit, and other concepts as well. Not to mention, the Gunbuster mech itself requires 2 pilots to pilot it. Wonder if the Gainax would ever recycle that again later on, huh? And yeah, it gets really over the top in the best way possible. Anyway, though, Moving on from that, as far as the animation goes, I can't really judge that, but I have heard people say it is phenomenal, especially not just for the time, but the Blu-ray remaster looks really damn good as well. Not to mention, this anime would have one claim to fame. It pioneered breast physics. Nice! But yeah, the anime not only having hot waifus, it would also, again, have very cool-looking mech fights. This was, after all, made by people who were fanboys of the mecha genre back at the time. So, of course, they'd make sure the mech fights look really cool. Now, as far as the soundtrack, it's your typical 80s affair. You've got some songs that make it feel like a space opera, while others sound like your typical 80s J-pop affair. And I'm all for it. I actually really like the soundtrack. Something nostalgic about watching an anime from this time period, you know? Even if it's one you've never seen before, which Gunbuster, I never have. This was my first time seeing it. But let's get to the reason you're all here, Dubster Dive, and see if the dub was worth nearly 40 years. 35 to be precise. First, we have the studio. This was dubbed out of Sound Cadence, and I was very skeptical when I heard they were involved, because, well, Sound Cadence did the dub for an anime called A Couple of Cuckoos, and the reason I bring that up is because that anime had terms such as touch some grass and a guy randomly shouting poggers. Yeah, Sound Cadence are a bit happy to go meme with their dub and their script, and I was kind of worried they were going to do the same thing here. I'm happy to report that was not the case. Yeah, for everything I could tell, their dub scripts seem to be pretty spot on. Now, there is some stuff I could have missed, but again, I didn't catch any meme shit, at least from what I saw. As far as the ADR directors, there's two, Marissa Lenti and Amberly Connors, with the script being done by Natalie Van Sistine. As I stated, I didn't really have many issues with the script. Now let's get to the characters themselves. First, we have Noriko Takaya, our protagonist, who's very determined and upbeat, and very happy, etc. She's best girl in my opinion. And yeah, she wants to try her best and prove herself that she can indeed handle anything thrown at her way. Not just to prove everyone around her that is doubting her, but also even prove it to herself. There's also moments where, again, she gets distraught and traumatized because her first actual space combat against the aliens doesn't really go very well, so you could imagine how that would affect her. Thus, they would have to get a voice actor that could definitely carry a role like this that goes all over the place with emotional depth, right? So they would get someone I've never heard of before in my life. Kian Chola King, which sounds like a Wakanda resident to me. I probably butchered the pronunciation of that name, but yeah, she is known for voicing Servant in episodes 2 and 6 of A Couple of Cuckoos, Keiko and Kagaki Shoujo, and add voices in Gundam the Witch from Mercury. I probably missed some other roles, but those were the only ones I could realistically find. And she actually does really damn good. If this is her first time voicing a pro tag, you know, like carrying a show or whatever, I don't think you could really tell. A lot of her lines did sound like Jill Harris to me, though. You know, Noelle from Black Clover, or Soletta from Gundam the Witch from Mercury, since I just brought it up. Especially since, I mean, Noriko and Soletta do seem a little similar in my opinion. Don't worry, we'll get to Gundam Mercury at some point. But yeah, I think Kian, if that is how you pronounce it, Kiane, does a really good job sounding, you know, bubbly and upbeat, and then also having to scream a lot when the situation calls for it. So, I don't really have any major complaints or anything like that. I think she did a really, really good job. Now, after her, we have our secondary main, or deuteragonist, Kazumi Amino. Oh, I should mention, Amino's last name, Noriko does call her Amino at one point. It only happened once from what I could tell, but it still happened. Kazumi is the person in the beginning that Noriko admires most and wants to prove herself to the most. Since Kazumi seems to be perfect at everything. She's very good at athletics, very good at being able to pilot the mech, and she's also the one that Noriko is basically stated to be piloting the Gunbuster with. That's the one that she's required to in order to make Gunbuster draw out its full power. And yeah, you can tell Kazumi does genuinely care about Noriko, and they form a close-knit bond as the show goes on. They have their ups and downs, and I don't know, I actually felt like it was a very believable relationship at times. I ain't gonna complain. Kazumi is your typical serious, mature one of the duo. The one who wants to get the job done and shit. She is voiced by Melissa Sternenberg, who's Kanan from Galaxy Express 999 the film, because Discotek won't dub the damn TV series. Why? And Edinburgh from Azure Lane, as well as Tiffany from Rio Rainbow Gate. I'm gonna be honest, I thought she could have dealt with some more takes here and there. There are moments where her emotions, I didn't quite feel there was enough emotion. Some of her performance sound deadpan to me. Now, that could just be me, I don't know. But then there were other moments where she was screaming on top of her lungs like, really pissed off or really aggravated and irritated. So I think this one could be on a little bit of directing. Again, not the worst performance I've heard, just felt like there could have been a couple more takes here and there, in my opinion. It was alright. Especially when she's yelling at their coach, which I'm about to get to right now. Our third main, Ota. Ota is the one who first spots Noriko's potential and requests her to basically go on the mission by the end of Ep 1. You see, Ota happened to be a good friend of Noriko's father, and yeah, he sees the potential in his friend's daughter and believes that she has the potential to pilot the Gunbuster and help save humanity. He's your typical hard-ass, commanding officer that shouts at you like to get your ass in gear and everything like that. He's also stoic and clearly fangirl bait. He's voiced by Bradley Gareth, who's Solomon from Parallel World Pharmacy and Jujutsu from One Piece. He's also the guy that keeps going on about Glam and Blue Lock, whose name I cannot remember off the top of my head. But if you want another role, Kyle from The Legendary Hero is Dead. You should all watch that show. It's hilarious. And this might be one of my favorite performances from Bradley Gareth. You can really feel the emotion in his voice when he's, again, shouting orders or screaming at Noriko, "You're not listening to what I'm saying," etc. You can feel it, like the anger or even the shit in his voice when he's bothered or perturbed by something. And you can tell he's broken up about a situation. Overall, Ota might seem like your typical commanding officer dude, but I think Bradley Gareth did a really good job bringing out the most he could with this character, and yeah, he was not a bottom shelf Brad. No bottom shelf Brad performance here. After him, we have Jung Freud. Jung Freud is a Soviet pilot that happens to join Noriko and Kazumi on their mission, who happens to be a redhead who's all full of herself. Wonder if Anna would ever revisit that whole thing. Foreign redhead who's full of themselves and ends up forming a close-knit bond with the main characters after a couple of episodes of having a bit of an ego. Nah. Anyway, so yeah, you all get it. She's a little bit like Asuka. Not as violent or temperamental, but definitely has a little bit of an ego and starts off like wanting to have a pissing contest with Kazumi, but eventually warms up to them and becomes friends with them being Kazumi and Noriko. She's voiced by Alexandra Yastashak, who's known for voicing Kagura and Shadowverse, as well as being ad voices in Konosuba and Beyblade Burst Turbo. Oh shit, she was in the Puss in Boots movie, the new one. That's something. But yeah, Jung also does have a Russian accent, and I think Alexandra did a really solid job, in my opinion. No complaints. She's second place for Best Girl. Fight me. But yeah, I think she did good. Now, after her, we have Tashiro, captain of the battleship that they're all on when they go into space to take on the aliens, the battleship Excellion. Tashiro is voiced by Bill Jenkins, who's Von Karma from Ace Attorney, and being X from Saga of Tanya. And Tashiro is your typical old, experienced captain. Kind of reminds me of Jean-Luc Picard a little bit. You don't get as much on him as I would like, but, he's what you'd expect. It's just a bill. Does a really solid job here, I think. I ain't gonna lie. Now, after him, we've got a couple of other side characters left. First, we have Kimiko, who's Noriko's best friend back when she was at the Academy in Episode 1, before she went off to space and left Kimiko behind. This is where the time dilation thing becomes important. So to sum it up, think the hyperbolic time chamber. While Noriko and them are moving through space on missions at, super speeds and all that shit, the time dilation causes time on Earth and space to, separate in a sense. So 1 second for Noriko could be days on Earth, or even sometimes months. Thus, Kimiko, who was the same age as Noriko, after a few episodes, ends up being much older than Noriko. And, yeah, she's just your typical friend coon. Not really much to go off of with her personality, but I bring it up because it's that whole thing of Noriko it's showing what she's sacrificing by going into space, fighting off the aliens to protect her loved ones. They're constantly aging around her while she is staying the same as she's fighting on her mission. I don't know. I like that sort of cool aspect about it. I think it's a cool aspect. Showing what the heroes all have to sacrifice. That sometimes it's not just, they're not putting their life on the line. They're also putting their, I guess you'd call it a situation on the line, like the time that they have with their friends on the line. Because by the time Noriko's done with her mission, her friends might be all gone. Or at the very least, they're so old that, the age gap is massive to where Noriko could pass as like their great-great-granddaughter or something. I don't know. Anyway, got a little off topic with that tangent. I bring it up because Kimiko is voiced by Lisa Ortiz, Lena from The Slayers, and Aino from the Aria, the animation series. And Lisa Ortiz does a really good job. I don't think I've heard a bad performance from her, at least in recent memory that I could think of. And she has to voice Kimiko at multiple ages. Once as a teenager and once as an older woman and so on and so forth. And, yeah, I ain't got any complaints about that. Which brings me to Kimiko's daughter, Takumi. Takumi didn't exist in Episode 1, because, again, pre-time dilation, but by the time Noriko gets back, well, Kimiko is a family now, including a daughter, Takumi. Voiced by Christina V. Riruka from Bleach, Sarabella from Skullgirls. That one hurt me. You all know what happened with Skullgirls recently, man. That sucks. Anyway, and Killer from Hunter x Hunter. Christina V is doing her higher-pitched voice here, like from Noelle from BlazBlue. And, again, I don't got any complaints. She doesn't really have much character to her. It's more just to represent... She serves a purpose to represent what Noriko must protect. That it's not just Kimiko she's fighting for now. Now it's Kimiko's loved ones and family that Noriko must protect. Again, I like that shit. Which brings me to the last side character that has a decent amount, I guess. Reiko Kashiwara. Reiko is someone who starts a pseudo-rivalry with Noriko in Episode 1, because when Noriko gets picked by Ota to go into space, Reiko's like, bitch, I'm #1 in our class. I should be the one to go. I'm good with the mech. I'm good with this. You all know that stuff. And she's voiced by Crystal Laporte, who's Yui from Love Love Total Eclipse. I really should probably redo that episode now that I've finished the Total Eclipse visual novel. I'm more equipped to handle that one better. And Chelsea from Infinite Dendrogram. And Reiko's another one who she has to do multiple time voices for because of the time dilation. And again, no complaints. I think she did really, really good. So, yeah, more power to you. Oh, I didn't even mention this real quick. There's actually dubbed singing in this between Kazumi and Ota. You actually get to hear them sing a duet, and I think both of them did pretty good, Melissa and Bradley Gareth. So yeah, and I always appreciate dubbed singing when it's in a show like this. Well, it's in a show, period. Now, the last thing I want to mention is some of the ad voices that I think are worth mentioning. The navigators on the ship, or some of the staff. these guys didn't really seem to have any names, but I just wanted to bring them up for the funs of it. So first we have Xander Mobus, Justin Briner, and it's the last one, Spike Spencer, that I wanted to mention. Yeah, they got Shinji in here. I thought that was a nice little, throwback. That's kind of cool. Hell, Noriko's father is voiced by Brett Weaver, which he also voiced in Ava and Gurren Lagann. He was Kamina in the ADV dub. Again, a couple of callbacks here and there. Would have been nice if they could get some of the other ones in here, like maybe Allison Keith Ship or Tiffany Grant, but hey, at least they got some of the stuff, people from Ava in here, right? And yeah, that was definitely a nice thing. I will say, though, the ad voice recycling is a bit noticeable. Spike Spencer voices multiple people. I'm pretty sure I heard multiple Xanders as well. And on the topic of ad voices, I can't avoid it anymore. There is one ad voice, fucking Damon Mills. I bring it up because I've seen some people online say they refuse to watch an English dub that has him featured even remotely in it. And to be fair, I only heard him say like one sentence and then he fucked off completely, but I totally understand why people think, or why they wouldn't want to watch something with this prick in it. So, again, figured I'd just put it out there. I didn't even notice he was in it at first till I watched it my second time and like, oh, there, yeah, the prick said one sentence, which from what I could tell. But on something that isn't shit, the voice filters. I actually think they're excellent. The filters they have when they're in the mechs talking to people outside of them, or when they're talking to, the mechs are getting ready to face off, talk to each other, or when they're coming through the radio. I think those were really well done. And the last character I should mention, that I just realized I didn't really go over, is Smith, an American pilot that Noriko has her first crush on, voiced by Jason Lebrecht, or Leobrecht, however you want to pronounce that, who's Hay from Darker Than Black. And because he's American, that means he has a slight southern accent. So, Again, I think he did a good job. Now, as far as any other things with the dub, they did actually dub the Lessons in Science shorts that take place between each episode, which was cool. Basically, to sum it up, they're Noriko and Kazumi giving lessons on what space is, and even explaining some of the lore with the series itself, about Jupiter 2, the planet that they discovered and stuff like that they keep referencing. And there's one where Noriko cosplays Sailor Moon characters and says, you can call her the pretty guardian of hard work and guts. I get it. As far as other funny things I noticed, there is a scene where characters are talking about how a chick met all the way with her boyfriend. They actually did it. But while they were doing it, she happened to hit her head on the bed frame during sex. Like, God, dude, just imagine that. It's gotta suck. That's basically it for the dub itself. I actually think the dub was pretty solid. Again, outside of one ad voice, and me thinking that Melissa could have done a couple more takes here and there, at least in my opinion. I thought this was a really solid dub, and better than I was expecting. I was going into it expecting maybe not the worst, but another forgettable Texas dub, but it turned out better than I thought. And hey, if you're all still on the fence for watching this series, well, I didn't even tell you its Japanese name, Aim for the Top, as a combination with the manga, Aim for the Ace, and the film Top Gun, one of the best films ever made. Yeah, they took inspiration from that, alright? That's how you know it's good. As far as the show itself and other things I really liked, without getting too deep into spoilers, I genuinely did like the Noriko and Kazumi relationship, how in the beginning, Kazumi's the one having to kick Noriko in the ass, along with Ota, and even having to encourage her. But then when Kazumi's feeling down because of a situation that happens with her later on around Ep5, you all know the scene I'm talking about if you've seen the show, then it's flipped and Noriko has to be the one who finally has confidence in herself to help Kazumi out of her funk. Again, I like that shit. I like when the situation's reversed on these characters, So it really shows quality writing, in my opinion. And if I did have to pick one issue I did have, I felt this could have had more episodes. it does feel like a lot of the plot points are rushed through because they crammed in so many ideas, not to the point of being confusing or a mess, but stuff you wish they would dwell on longer. For example, Noriko wants to get vengeance on her dad, but that plot point's kind of wrapped up by the end of episode 2. And then I mentioned that Noriko's first crush is on Smith. That's, like, told to us and shown to us in the first half of Ep 3. Would it make more sense for Smith to show up maybe in episode 2 and have the relationship go on for a couple of episodes? Instead of just like, oh, they've known each other for an hour or two. She's in love. Then again, I guess you could say Noriko's never known romance before, so love at first sight, I guess, could be an argument to be made there. Again, these are just... I don't think they ruin the whole experience. It's just stuff to... that I wish could have been fine-tuned. And with anime remakes being the norm nowadays, wouldn't be surprised if this gets one to get another shot in the spotlight. And I'd be all for it. This show is really good, and I'm glad I watched it. And I urge anyone out there who hasn't seen this classic series, now that it finally has, in my opinion, an okay dub, go for it. Especially if you want to see the predecessor to Eva. And... yeah. I don't think you all have to worry about it being as, I guess, down as Eva is at certain moments. This one, in my opinion, does end on a much more hopeful tone than the original Eva anime did. Oh, you know. Which I'm not going to spoil the ending here, but I will say it was definitely incredibly done, in my opinion. I love the ending, and I saw why some people were saying it was one of their favorite endings in anime. Now, will Discotek dub the sequel, though, Diebuster? I have no idea, but I really hope so. That'd be fucking cool. I'm all for that. I mean, they are dubbing some of their other classics, like Re Cutie Honey and some of the Fist of the North Star films. Dub the mainline series. Do it, you bitches! But yeah, I hope they dub Diebuster, and if they do, I'll be right back here covering it. I also want to cover some of Anno's other works, like Nadia's Secret of Blue Water, another series I haven't seen yet. But hey, before I get into the one thing I want to mention in spoiler territory, I'll just say, good show, really enjoyed it, glad I finally got to see this classic, and thank you Discotek for actually dubbing it, and, you know, hopefully you dub other classics too going forward. Dub all your shit. Give us a dub of Symphogear! Anyways, I'm gonna go into minor spoilers for one thing real quick, so if you don't want anything spoiled, that's your cue. Now, the one thing I want to talk about is I've seen a lot of people say the ship between Ota and Kazumi felt rushed, that it felt like it came out of nowhere in late Ep 4 or early Ep 5. I think there was foreshadowing to it that I caught, and I mainly only caught it my second time through. How Jung talks about hitting on Ota, and Kazumi gets pissed. Or Oda. I keep calling him Ota. Kazumi gets, you know, frustrated about it, like, don't, that's none of your business, blah, blah. And, again, the scene where they sing a duet together, you have a bunch of the crew members and ad voice being like, you know, they make a really cute couple. And that's a couple of episodes, but all this couple of episodes before it's confirmed that, you know, they're an item, more or less. So I think there was foreshadowing there. And... yeah, that's just my opinion, though. If you disagree, that's cool. That's mainly it. Again, I don't want to go into a huge discussion on the ending, because I do want people to experience this show. And, yeah. But, I guess that's it, then. Please let me know your thoughts on, if you agree that this show is really, really good, and if Noriko is best girl. Who knows, maybe you hated this show. And if you're wondering exactly what I mean about this being, having some similarities to Eva, well, your main character has daddy issues, is reluctant to get into the mech at certain points, and has to fight an otherworldly alien invading force. Swap out aliens with angels, and you get the idea. There's other things, too, that make it similar, but you all get the idea. Hell, you could even go with, Kaoru and Smith being a little similar with Shinji and Noriko. How Shinji and Kaoru formed a pseudo-romantic relationship the first episode, Kaoru shows up in the old anime, just like Noriko and Smith, if you want to go that far. But yeah. I hope you all enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed Gunbuster. Can't stress that enough. And that's it. How many times am I going to say that's it before I'm done? That's right. That's the real question here. As far as next time, probably going to cover the Konosuba spinoff. As well, I hope you all join me for that. And if you have any requests, please let me know down below, and we will get to them at some point. In the meantime, hope you all enjoyed, and please let me know what you thought of Gunbuster, and if you enjoyed the coverage and the English dub and all that. Maybe you hated the dub, I don't know. But until then, guys, I've been Delvis X, and I hope you have yourselves a great day. Oh, and by the way, UK getting limited edition of this Blu-ray, but we did it? Yeah, it's bullshit. Till next time, guys. Hope you all have yourselves a good day. Till then.